Hello, in this video we will cover the beginning and the basics of variables in PowerShell. There is a lot to cover, and I thought of many different ways of how we should best approach it, but really in the end I just decided to come to the PowerShell Variables About Variables page here at Microsoft. I'll have a link to this down in the description. Just want to pick out a couple of the important pieces here. Store all types of values as PowerShell variables. They can be used in commands, expressions. They can be paths, settings, and values for different commands. It's a unit of memory in which values are stored. It's just a blank container, and it can contain any object within PowerShell. So they begin with a $sign and can be named such as A. We can name it, if we were getting like all the processes, we're going to run git process as our, and store everything in variable. We could name it process or proc or something. They can have an underscore. It says they can include special characters, but they can be difficult to use and should be avoided. I don't know why they just don't make them not usable, but either way. So there's a few different kinds. There are automatic PowerShell variables. These are critical to the continued functionality of the shell itself. These are user-created variables where we'll be focusing with for the vast majority throughout all of our scripting. We'll be creating them, we'll be performing some function on them, maybe multiple functions sometimes, and then we'll be using them and then forgetting about them, just kind of going about our business unless we need them again. We can pull them up later. Working with variables, we'll do some demo here in a few minutes, but for the most part, what we want to iterate is scope. So types, we'll do types, and then we'll do scope. So it can be integers, strings, arrays, which we'll dive into in the next video. Hash tables. We'll create hash tables more later as well. You can view them by get member. We'll take a look at viewing one of our variables. The members available to it. Those are going to be a lot of the methods. If it has properties, we'll be able to modify them with a couple commands. It uses dot notation. And then scope is, so here we can use it in a command, but again, we'll get into all that in a little bit. Variables and scope. We'll see an example where we use it in a function, a variable in a function. We're not able to use it outside of that function, but so basically it is only available within a function that is called. A variable that you create in a script is only available within that script. So let's say that you have a script that pops open a new shell and creates a few variables for network related information. Those variables that populate with that information are only available in that script. When that shell closes and then you open that again, those variables will not be there. They don't retain the scope through scripts. There's scope modifiers, and we will delve into those later. And so without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the demo and start seeing how we can use variables in our scripts. Okay, now we'll go over a couple of demos to elaborate a little bit on what we had going on there. We'll demonstrate here in VS Code as well as some of the things in the terminal. create a new file and just go to save that immediately. Right here on the desktop is fine, and this can just be variables.ps1, and we'll change our file type. So inside of here we can say, we can just dictate a we create a variable called name, set that equal to and then say, and we would expect very much to see the variable name if we run variables dot. There we go. So we see that write output will just spit out basically whatever is in the variable at the time. As we said earlier, variables can be in any form. They can be an object, an array, which we'll cover in next video, and many others. So for this one, this is a simple variable. They can contain, here we can go ahead and comment out some lines here. Variables can also contain numbers, integer 4, and then int 2, be 4, and we would say if we wanted to do some math on them. I mean, this is a simple demonstration, but we could get, we would just, we would say, actually we have to declare this as result equals, and then we would just do write output result, and then if we run our program again, we would see that we get the result. And then, so they can contain regular numbers, regular strings, and here we'll go ahead and take, this is one of the most common forms of uses for oh yeah, wrong program, for variables, where we would say, we'll take some input here in just a moment, and we'll say read host, which is PowerShell's get user input command. Say prompt, and we'll say enter a number to multiply by 4, and then we'll say that actually that this is int 2, and we will uncomment a few things here. We'll bring that down, and we'll bring this out of the other one there, and then so basically, and then result, we need to actually put this above, there we go, and then we would, so I like to do a write output for a blank line. That way it kind of separates the text a little bit. Then we can say just write, and we can just do write. VS Code doesn't like it. It wants you to use the particular or the specific write output, but it'll work just the same. And we can run our program again and enter a number to multiply by, oh yeah, that's right. We're just going to cancel out of that because we didn't actually set multiply. We set plus still. We just change that to the asterisk, and then run our file again, and number to multiply by 4 times 6. So we would expect it to be 16. If we run it again and we put in 10, we would expect 40, so on. So easy way to get simple input from the user and to perform a function or an action on it. So we can do that also in the regular terminal, but it's not as functional. We'll keep that open for a second, but another thing we can do with, or another thing we need to be cautious of with when we're using variables in our scripts is variable scope. So I have notes over here, 1 second. Okay. So here we're gonna get the user folders on a computer. We're just gonna get the actual folders here in the user's location. So we'll define a variable stating that the path is the path to the location of the user's folder. So here we can define the path there, and then we would say that output is going to equal the command get child item. We can tab to complete that. And we'll pass the variable path, and we will actually we'll pass the parameter path. Should have probably switched up the names. We will pass the value that is in the variable path to the parameter path. Apologies for tripping over that. And then we will leave the function, and we will say we want to write output. We want write output, and then we're just going to output actual, and then we'll say to run the function here. And if we run our script again, we're not going to see anything. So output, we can tell here that there's an issue. Output is not assigned, or I mean it's assigned but never used, even though we're using it here. It's because it can't access this part. It can't access the value here from this scope because of the code block here. If we just put the code right there, lift that up, and then do that again, we should get the output of the command. This is what is stored in output. If we wanted to do something else with it, we could say output dot count would be, we can do length, and it should be 2 because there are 2 folders here, but like let's say we had hundreds or whatever, it might be a little different. Let's get that out of there, clear this, run this one more time, and then we can see here that it also prints out 2. Again, if there were 50 folders in here or whatever, this would be a 50. So we can go ahead and clear this off. So we've discussed scope, we've discussed naming variables. We will go over arrays more in the next video. And over to PowerShell, where we will create a variable and set it equal to, and we can just print out some variable like we did before, but we also have methods we can run onto it. We can pass that, we can pipe it, which is a which sends the output of one command to the input of another command. And so we can pipe that to get member, and we can see all the different methods we can perform on these in an object-oriented state like this is. These are methods, but they resemble functions that can be performed as well. We can trim the end of the string. We can do substring, what I like to call string foo. We can make them uppercase. In fact, as we've seen, if we print out some variable, it is just lowercase, but if we said some variable dot to upper, just save that in upper. There we go. And then we just look at upper, and it's hello uppercase. We can do, we can say that new string equals upper plus world, and just kind of, oops, that is not what I expected to see there. New string, and we didn't put any space in, so if we wanted to, we would put a space in here, run that again, check out new string, and we can see that it's different. And we could say, what else do we got? So let's say we wanted to check, I mean, again, let's say it was important how many characters this contains. So we could do length on, run that, and it's 11 characters, which we would probably find with a space there. So I think that basically covers the beginning of variables. There's a lot. I highly suggest checking the documentation over a couple of times. We can always refer back to it even when we've been using these systems for a long time. In the next video, we will go over arrays, and there is a lot to cover there, so stay tuned.